Hello and welcome to the Dance of Soul. And we are here, Regan and I are here to help you. I'm Natasha Venter and Regan Forston to support you in this dance of the soul. And the dance of soul is about how, our soul dances from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, but yet this is where we're at right now doing this work. And even if you believe in different dimensions, at the same time this is happening, like the matrix system and all that kind of crap. Yes, it's all true in my belief system. Yet at the same time, though, what do we need to do? Be here in the
And
moment that we're
now.
at.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if it's this dimension or like me seeing other dimensions who are doing shows at the same time. They have to be concentrating in that moment as my soul is in that section too. So, but it's what we get out of each moment on earth at this moment. And today we're going to talk about communication because it seems like that a lot of people struggle with that, young ones to old ones, because we don't know how to get our emotions out. We don't know how to do that. And then, on the show I was on the radio yesterday, and she asked me what we were going to talk about, and I said, well, talk about grief and the little things, and then I went into communication. I'm like going, okay, but we get a lot of grief when we have communication that doesn't go right, or you
Yeah.
know or we don't get what we want out of the communication, or there's a lot of grief in that. And so I'm going to alter what I said in the description just a little bit and kind of add a little bit of that grief into communication and relationships, because I know that a lot of us, like for me sometimes, my husband likes to hear things in 3-word sentences, and I like to say things in 3 or 4 sentences. He wants words, I get sentences. And so there's grief sometimes in that. I just want to be heard, but then I have to do discernment. I have to figure out how to manage it so he's right and I'm right. And that's that balance. And Regan, you've had several relationships. I've had a 30 some odd year relationship with
Mm-hmm.
mine, plus a marriage before. And so and then I had a dad and a mom who had a 25-30 year marriage, and death is the only thing that separated them, and they communicated. So I didn't hear a lot of yelling when I was growing up, so I heard
Mm-hmm.
conversations. So I learned how to communicate. I just sometimes married a man who, you come from people who, you get it in relationships, but people don't always know how to communicate. And I know that my husband, to give an example, grew up in a house that was a little bit more yelly and telling and judgmental, and not to say I didn't grow up in a judgmental house, but yet at the same time it was a little bit differently managed. And no right or wrong, it's the difference in how you learn your tools. And so that's where I think that, communication is a really prickly dance. And so me being a multi-life intuitive, spiritual life coach, and then Regan, thank you for being here. And, you doing your
Thanks.
dance of your therapy class course, and, the Newton Institute and all that kind of stuff that,
Mm-hmm.
and life is our teacher too. So
Yeah. Well, what both of us do in different ways is try to um, help people get more pieces to the big picture.
hmm
So that their life can be so they can run their life a little bit easier. Without quite so many dings and dents. You know, um, you through your being an intuitive medium, and me through hypnosis, where with the Newton Institute, I facilitate people going into trance and visiting the afterlife for a few hours, um, and so um, you know with what you tell them and what people learn from going to the other side, like having a near death experience without the death part. Spend a couple hours over there, and you can have these a counsel over there answer any questions you prepare. But then what that means is when you get that information, and you come out of that, well, here you are in this life, and they've just given you some tools or some things that you should do for a happier life. And this is why communication is at the crux of everything. If you don't have good communication in everything that you do, it's going to show up with some sort of dysfunction or something going not as you would like to have it, so it's a huge subject, isn't it? Because I guess we think about it mostly communication with our spouses, because that's usually the number big one. But there's also, communication with our brothers and sisters, and our parents, and our pets even, and our therapists, communication, and people at work, and our bosses. We kind of get up in the day, we go out in the world, and what we do all day long is communicate, what our needs and our wants are and what we're trying to do. So poor communication can lead to a pretty messy thing sometimes.
Oh, it totally is. And it's amazing, how communication is. And we've got a couple people saying hello. Kate,
Who's
hi.
here?
Kate is here. Hi,
Oh,
Kate.
Kate. Hey, Kate. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, and we're doing well. We are definitely
Yeah.
doing well. And hello, Paula. How are you doing?
And
Glad
Paula?
you got us here. Yeah, it's it's one of those things that, going forward it's amazing. And my eye is twitching here. That if we can, get ourselves negotiating our world, I find that I can diffuse a situation like that in just my presence. And because communication isn't just about words, it's your body language.
Yes.
It's your whole thing. And it's one of those things that I'm just so grateful that you guys, I'm seeing you guys all saying hi to each other. And it's amazing that everybody here is saying hi to each other. And I love this community that we're
Yeah.
getting. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you, because you guys supporting us is why we do this. And it's
Yeah.
not just about you guys, it's about everybody,
Yeah.
being
So
here.
if you can chime in today, especially communication, I'm sure both of you that we just talked to there, have people that you have to communicate with. Maybe some examples of something you've done in wrong communication or something right. What I found out that, you see, communication is about being vulnerable, and that's the thing, is the harder it is for you to be vulnerable, the harder it is to communicate, because you're afraid of somebody's judgment,
Mhm.
what they might feel if you're saying what you need to say. But it's crucial. So there's different techniques, like some of my clients, if that have trouble in communicating that way. I find out that the best way to, one of the best ways to do it is in your mind before. If you have something important you want to communicate to somebody, kind of do a little rehearsal in your mind first. Just don't blurt out stuff with all your feelings and everything, because if you're upset, at something in particular, the other person is going to react to your upsetness and that energy rather than what you're trying to say or do. I found some of my clients have done pretty well when they have a hard time being vulnerable, is I have them write a letter and write it down and to their partner or something. But they always have to preface it by, I love you, I just have this concern. And even be vulnerable and saying, it's hard for me to say sometimes, so I'm just putting this in a note. So don't take this as an attack or anything. I've just noticed something that's not working, and there's some, I have maybe an idea of maybe what we could do. um, I think that's when communication shuts down. It's usually because of that factor, that we are attacking the other person, in a sense, with our frustration or hurt feelings or something like that, and that just throws gasoline on the fire usually. And then pretty soon people are arguing, yelling, screaming at each other, and a week later you ask them what they were screaming and arguing about, they won't even remember. It was just that energy that was coming out.
Exactly. And hi, Sarah, how are you? I tell everybody else to write a letter in lieu of difficult in communication.
That's
Yeah,
a good idea.
yeah, and that's the thing is that we do it, but I want to preface this. Now, I'm married to a recovering narcissist. you know, um, Being an alcoholic since he was 12 years old, narcissism kind of comes as a a back pocket or a backpack that you carry when you're drinking, or having an addiction. It just comes naturally. We're all narcissists somewhere in ourselves. We just know how to defer it, discern it, negotiate it differently. But we all have one. And so with that, learning to communicate with someone of like a narcissistic attitude, or someone who is very selfish in their own right, or someone who is in authority, even, because some narcissists, you can kind of practice with them, because that's how you would want to talk with an authority person, right? Because they have to be in the right if they're a manager or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. And so if you're negotiating with someone who is of more rightedness because of their placement, not saying a narcissist is in the right, but that's a good place to practice, right? That what I have found is I have to check in with my intention before I start any conversation. What is my intention?
Yeah.
And sometimes even stating that my intention here is to because I felt dishonored during this statement, or I'm feeling dishonored because of this action that was done, or that kind of thing. And then if I have found through time that coming back and keeping it an I feeling, and I knowing, keeping, and I find that if I can go with, let's say, with that, with the intention of being kind, loving, yet boundaries, that, and what is my agenda in this? And I feel like when I can go in and check my intention, it takes me out of victim. And if we
Yeah.
can have conversations out of victim, then we can really negotiate a lot of the dance of a conversation before we get there. And that's practicing, because I know that through COVID, a lot of us became introverts.
Or
And that
more
does,
introvert.
yeah, or more introverts. And so when we do that, we're not really good at communicating. And I know for me, even me being just like, people always say that, like me working with what I do, that I walk into a room and people say, did you say anything? And I go, no, but I walked in a room with knowings. I stood there. I was loving kindness, but yet what was my intention? And it is a negotiation of who we are. But a lot of us come from victimhood, and it really sets the wrong intention. It's okay to understand what your victimhood is. I felt dishonored. I felt abused. I felt shamed. I felt belittled. I felt whatever that I felt was, but bring it out into what is my intention to fix it, if you can.
Yeah. Well, one thing I used to like, my former wife, Connie, who went to the funeral this Sunday, and what was really interesting was, my uh, nephew and his wife. She carried the baby, as we were talking about, too, 7 months, 7 months and 2 weeks, and then
Oh.
she didn't. She woke up one morning and her daughter, she knew it was going to be a girl, was not kicking or moving or anything anymore, and she feared that she had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So she waited. Well, she went to the doctor, and they said, "Well, we need to remove your child because the child is not, breathing." But so she waited 2 more days to have the child taken out, because it was her birth. My niece, I guess you'd call her, his birthday was in 2 days. So she had the baby taken out, so it'll actually show on the birth certificate, or on the certificate, that the baby died on her birthday, on my niece's birthday. So that way she could always remember it and everything. And uh, the name that they gave her was Evelyn. And I didn't know that the pastor at the time said the name Evelyn meant want to live, or want to have life, or something like that. It was a perfect name. for there. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, it was the best celebration of life or, funeral that I've ever been to before. Um, when all this happened, when they took the baby out, they were able to hold her. Oh, it gets very emotional thinking about it. But the grandmother was there. Both grandmothers were there. Both grandfathers were there, and her sister was there when they renewed the baby, and they all were able to hold this little baby that just didn't quite make it. And she videoed the sister took a lot of pictures and everything. So at the funeral, they had this. It was like a professionally done little 5-minute video with music and everything, and it showed everybody interacting with who would have been the granddaughter, who would have been, their daughter, and they've been trying for 14 years to have children, and the
Wow.
church. Yeah, the church had helped them by raising money for in vitro, and they did a GoFundMe thing. So when she got pregnant, the whole church was in joy. So, and now that this happened, the church, someone in the church every night for the next month is bringing them something to eat. They had a great funeral service. It was just really beautiful. But the thing I like the best is the pastor. He was saying, even though she didn't live, look at all the joy that she brought everybody. In other words, it got people excited about having a grandchild, and it made the parents closer, and it made the parents, grandparents closer to their daughter, and
Mhm.
everything. So he pointed out that even though she just lived to 7.5 months in the womb, um, her life had meaning and purpose, and I thought, how beautiful is that?
Yes.
They did
And
that.
that is the dance of the soul. Is
Yeah,
that sometimes we're here on a blink of an eye, and sometimes we're here for longer than a moment. And
yeah,
it's what do we do with that? And that's why I'm always checking my intention. What
yeah,
is my intention? Because we never know whose story we're meeting up with, what we're doing, and and I never, like I was talking with someone the other day, and no fault of theirs, they were in hurt, they were in pain, and they went into assumption, and
oh boy, there's a big one there.
yeah, and I love this person. There's no judgment here, but I held space for that moment of assumption to move through. And then when the time came and I asked, "Can I give you a communication? Can I give you a different perception?" And I waited
Yeah,
for an answer. And I said, "To take me out of pain or judgment or ache or whatever that moment is, I have to put myself into another assumption, you know?
hmm,
Maybe the person had an emergency. Maybe the person was just done. Maybe the person, had a bad day and needed a small mini vacation. Maybe, right? And so then that takes me out of, well, they're not there, and that communication we have with ourselves, right?
hmm,
And so going into that, mode of why, it's like going through with this grief with your grandniece here to to put a title on where she might be attached to you,
yeah,
that that whole communication now, what does those parents, what do they do to communicate to themselves? How do people
yeah,
communicate to them when people know that they're in grief? What? There's no right, there's no wrong. It is what it is, and it's that exact acceptance of, oh wow, that person was hurting,
yeah.
and they're gonna bite, they're gonna chomp. It's a moment, and what can we do with that? It's
Well, we're talking about writing to communicate sometimes, and during the funeral service, both the grandmother and her daughter, my niece, both wrote letters to the little baby that never lived. And oh, it was it was just beautiful, from a grandmother's viewpoint and from the mom's viewpoint, and giving so much love to this little child that had died. And so their community, it was interesting. And even the pastor, everything was that whole day at the service was communication, but it was picking, like you say, looking at it, choosing a different way of looking at it, rather than all totally horrible, awful. Oh my gosh, victim. Why did my da 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 da? It was
Which is
all about,
okay. That's all
right.
okay.
Yeah. But they, were choosing to accentuate love, through everything. So it was pretty cool. But now my and the reason I got sidetracked on that little thing there was because when we were talking about communication, my ex that I was with for 10 years, going to this church, I knew where it was, but I turned one way, and I should have turned left, but I turned right. So it took me about 10 minutes out of my way. So by the time I got back to where I was, just as I'm pulling in the parking lot, my ex is coming right in with me, so I go over and open the door for her, and we're the first ones there. And it was just meant to be, because she had 3 packs of Kleenex, because she's a crier, she's just so sweet that way, so empathetic. And so she just feels people's pain. And so she said, well, I'm so worried. And I said, well, I'm going to sit with you, so you'll get through this, So we had the most great conversation, and we were later on in the day, we had a birthday party for an 8-year-old, one of my granddaughters. And so I got to see my ex there, and we just spent the whole time talking, and being there. And we talked about how us assuming things, how much trouble that got us into our marriage, and actually led to us getting a divorce, because when we were both bad communicators, we were both having to assume what we thought the other person was feeling. And so we would act on the assumptions, and the assumptions took us further and further apart because we were so wrong. At one point, 2 years after we had divorced, we got together and we called ourselves Mr. and Mrs. Stupid, just because we just, if we had known, if we'd have been able to communicate what was on our hearts, and because we loved each other, we'd still be together today. But we didn't. We just assumed, and then that led to dysfunction. And so, communication is really good. And don't assume. If you feel that something's wrong in your relationship, you have to find a way to say, can we talk? I think we feel something's wrong.
Exactly. And I know for me that there was a moment last night that I could have had a moment of miscommunication because of actions or that kind of stuff. And I pulled the moment aside today and said to the person, it's like, hey, I know that there might have been misunderstandings about what was interpreted last night. And I just want to make it clear where I was,
Okay,
so
that's
that
good.
that we don't add on to the layers of old stories of miscommunication, because we're really trying this person and I are trying to really set up new understandings and better communication. And it takes a moment of going, could there have been a misunderstanding last night? I'm going to make sure that there isn't, or at least where I was interpreting, where was I in that moment? Was I tired? Was I happy? Was I, sharp? Was I, not communicating well? What was it? What was my body language saying? And what we can do with all that. And we've had a couple of comments here. I'm taking this moment. I've been learning a lot about the really interferes with communication too.
What is CPTSD?
Yeah, acronyms are good for some people, and you're talking to a dyslexic. My hubby was in recovery too. Good job. That's
good.
Yeah, and that mine's now almost 13 years. In September will be 13 years of sobriety, and what a beautiful story.
Now see those acronyms. Childhood PTSD.
PTSD.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yeah. And people who are in the dance of acronyms, but I send love to them.
Yeah. Childhood PTSD. Wow. A lot of children, because they've had a difficult childhood, because of the difficult childhood, that's where a lot of times their difficult communication steps in, because so many times some wrongful parenting has just shut them up anytime they had something important to say. Like children should be seen and not heard,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And that happens a lot of times where a child will real excitedly start to say something, and the parents just override what the child says, or tell the child, oh, just go over there, and the child, all of a sudden the child goes, oh, when I speak, it's unpleasant. I get kind of a little emotional slap in a way, or I get something there. So they learn to not speak up,
Mhm.
that way. So yeah, I think, I really think like in high schools and stuff, they should have classes on communication, because sure, they learn trigonometry, and they learn history, and they learn English and that, but they don't learn to communicate. And I mean, we have so many things so backwards in a way,
But I can tell
it,
you, being in the education system that
oh,
I
you are,
am,
that's right, yeah.
yeah, in the morning I do go, not too sure the dance of that in the future, but you know, that it is, there's a lot of wonderful teachers. I'm going to tell you there isn't wonderful teachers too, but at least in the school that I work in, we have wonderful teachers, and they do support kids by, like even kindergartners. She's doing this. Well, how can we say that differently? On the
Yeah.
playground, I'm one of the playground duties, and so it's like, okay, so there's somebody saying this and there's somebody saying that. Okay, neither's wrong. I mean, who's assuming what?
Hmm.
Were you a little bit upset about, what were you upset about? I was upset that I got told something in the classroom by the teacher. Okay, so now friend, she's upset because something happened in the classroom. So really what she's mad about is not you, right? Oh, I
Mm.
thought she was
That's
mad at
great.
me. No, she's mad at something in the classroom, right? Yeah. Are you mad at her? No. But then she got mad at me, and I thought that, and then they're fighting back and forth because one thought that they were mad at her, and that exactly is what happens, is miscommunication. And so sometimes I have to slow everybody down and be, because a lot of times at that moment of discombobulation, we have to slow down, and we don't learn that from childhood to adults, and a lot of us are growing up in dysfunction. But how can we learn? By watching other people. And I think that's where we've kind of done a disservice to our children, because they haven't gotten street smarts. They can't
Hmm.
run out and drive their bikes, through town anymore. They can't do a lot of these things, because for one, we have a lot of kids who are on the spectrum, and we can't let them go, right? And then, you have to worry about who, what, where's around that area, so you don't really want your kids to ride around, but they don't really hang out with a lot of kids to learn that, hey, if you say something, it's going to hurt somebody else's feelings.
Yeah.
And so we've done a disservice with not having the ability to get together, and then we had COVID on top of that, right? So then
Hmm.
we learned that connection, and we those kids that were growing up, let's say 1 through 3, 4, 5, during COVID, lost about 2.5 years of communication skills, because when you're stuck in a home with your family, hmm, that's a
Yeah.
one-sided conversation, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. It's a one-sided conversation. So how can we support this maturing that we all need to do, children to adults, in how to communication different? And there's a lot of grief in it. We get a lot of the stories of things, and our feelings get hurt, and then we get told that we're something that we're not, and or we perceive ourselves that we're not, and it's
Yeah.
it's a thing. It's a really big thing. And I've really lately gotten the mantra, you know, I haven't done anything wrong, but there's something I can change. I haven't done anything wrong, but there's something I can change. Like example, I know that if I do a certain action, my husband will get upset, and it's a simple action, and it's something about time. And I know that it's one of his triggers. I'm not doing anything wrong because if I'm 10 minutes late, it's not wrong, right? Especially when I plan to be there 20 minutes early, right? But
Mm-hmm.
in his perception, I'm 10 minutes late. What can I do? Even though I'm not doing anything wrong, I can communicate. Remember, babe, we're planning on being there 20 minutes early, so now we'll only be 10 minutes early. We're still good, right? Because I gave myself extra time. So I can communicate a little differently, knowing that that's one of his triggers. So the something I can do different is communicate about it instead of just saying, frick that. I'm good. I got 20 minutes. I gave myself extra 20 minutes. But communicate that because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not late. But it's one of his triggers that perceives it as wrong. So how do? I communicate a little bit differently, reminding him politely, hey, babe, remember, using my tone right, because sometimes it's not what we say, it's our tone.
Right. The tone is very important.
The tone. Hey, babe, remember we were gonna try to leave early to give us extra time just in case of traffic. So this is kind of getting into that time, but I'm here. I'm ready. Sorry I had to go to the bathroom last minute. You know. And so with that there is that form of communication, and I'm just using my husband as an example because he's an easy place to go to, but he's a good man. He's a very good man. I love him. 34 years now of marriage,
Yeah.
and we're doing it. So but it is, so being careful, intention, tone, and why do we need to communicate?
Actually, a good thing to communicate too. So if you, as a couple, have some kind of rules you've set up, and if you've gone outside those rules, either on purpose or accidentally or whatever, just acknowledging that and saying, oh, sorry, I really promise to do better next time. Just acknowledging that can really diffuse the other
Mm-hmm.
person's frustration or something, because they know that that's a form of caring, saying, look, I've dropped the ball a little bit here and I apologize. I'll try to do better next time. But it really, really helps instead of just being quiet. And then that they're steaming, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and that you did wrong. Just, kind of say that. Um, so I know I was going to say there was a technique. Well, there's two of them I was thinking of, but um, I had a teacher in hypnotherapy college, and she was talking to us about how she communicated with her husband. I think I mentioned it one time, maybe last year on the show, but it bears repeating because it's a great technique for those of you listening. Um, the problem that she had was she was very in love with her husband, and her daughter were not actually seeing him very often because he was working so hard and working so much that he had very little time left for the family, and that was kind of hurting the relationship between the daughter and the wife. So what she did when she sat down with her husband, like after dinner, she says, sweetheart, there's an issue I'd like to talk to you about. Says, your daughter and I love you so much, and we just can't get enough of you, and we've not had very much of you lately because you've been working, and I know you need to work hard and that sort of thing, but we really need to have more time with you. And then she said to him, what's your solution? She put, it was very sweet that way. She didn't go, oh, you're working so much, you're never spending time with us, we're so hurt and everything. Just saying, hey, we love you, we'd love to spend time with you, and you're not giving us enough time, sweetheart, what's your solution?
Mm-hmm.
So it put it, without accusing and everything, it put the ball in his court in a very nice way. you know um, and she said, it made him really think like, oh wow, I am being kind of a workaholic, and that's not really good. And they were able to plan it where they could actually spend more time with their. So that's one way of doing it. When you say, oh, we have this issue, in a non-threatening way, say, what do you think? What's your solution to the other person, and get them involved. Uh, you know, um, and I'm trying to think of the. Oh, one thing my ex did that was very beautiful is when we were communicating better, she had this technique where she would, say, well, we need to talk about something, and she would have me follow her up to the bedroom, and she would lay on the bed, and I would lay next to her in a relaxed position, and then she would express, what was going on. But she just put us in this relaxed, non-confrontational place that way. Also, NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And everybody out there, look it up. There's so many videos. You can learn a lot online. Watch Tony Robbins, especially. He's a master at neuro linguistic programming, on how he gets you to look at situations that upset you, but to look at it from a different viewpoint that's less upsetting. And if people choose to look at the situation, which it's another way of looking at it. There's, like people say, there's always more than one way to look at a situation.
There is,
And
and I do a lot of that myself
yeah,
in my own skills to survive myself, but in the sense of negotiating the world around me. And, if somebody's doing something outside of me, I'd use that as a mirror to turn it around and see what I can do about it. And, I was a little distracted there. I apologize. My eye is really twitching, and I was looking up the intuitive meaning for eye twitching so that I can manage what is going on, so that I can deal with the scenario.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell from here that you were.
Oh, good. Because I was trying to do it with discernment, but it's like it's almost blurring my vision. It's so twitchy, and
you don't have contacts then, do you?
No, I don't. But it's about well, I know the eye is about vision, getting a vision. And I guess the right eye is about good luck coming in. So how do I perceive my good luck coming in? So there's a lot of things coming in. So I just was like, okay, here's a moment. What were we talking about? Eye twitching, that kind of stuff. So communication, good communication. So
yeah,
I guess I'm doing a good job with my communication.
Yeah. Now, some people, I don't think they'll have to feel bad, because some people are born good communicators. Others have to learn, and some people never do learn. But again, the Enneagram, 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 and that where us therapists know that we've identified about 9 different softwares in people, and I'm a 9, which, excuse me, the heading of 9s is the peacemaker. And part of our personality, the way our software works and everything, is we try to avoid confrontation in any way possible, because we just want to chill. We want everybody to get along. We make really good therapists that way, because we can naturally see both sides of a situation. It's pretty easy for us. Where some other of the other 8 numbers, some of them aren't as good as we are at assessing it that way. So for me, it's always been a struggle, with communication, of speaking up my wants and needs. We're like chameleons a lot of times. We'll just go along with whatever's going on because we don't want to rock the boat. And so, we're people always look at us as just 9s are just super easygoing. And everybody likes to have a 9 in their life, because that they're not going to want to start a fight with you and everything.
Exactly, but we can be passive aggressive.
Right, and so that's what it comes out sometimes.
Because everything has a positive side and everything has a shadow side.
Right.
And I know for us, we can be really passive aggressive, and that's a sneaky way we have to go. And it's one of those stories. But I can tell you, though, that me being a double Cancerian Aries moon, that I really have had to practice. Sometimes it's not about a straight line getting someplace. Sometimes I have to be my little crab and go sideways, to get where I need to go. Because crabs don't necessarily go forward very much. They go more sideways and go different ways to get to where they need to go. And so how can I communicate seeing a different perspective or going a different way? But being a 9 and a double Cancerian, I've learned to let my Aries be the fire that kind of pushes me into, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right to me. I had a situation that I had to talk to a supervisor, and And I really had to learn how to be my discerning self. And I took my guides in with me, and being intuitive like I am, I took my guides in with me, my dragon in with me, and I would hear once in a while, breathe. I would hear those words, breathe, because they knew I was conversating and I was taking it in. So they needed to make the communication simple, right? My guides had to make communication simple. Breathe. So what that key word was to me was get back down in my gut, stay out of the mind, stay into victim, stay out of victim. The mind wants to play victim,
Yeah.
stay out of victim and get down back into myself. What is my intention? What do I need to do? Breathe, be down into myself. And I can tell you that the greater good came, I pray, at least on my end, out of to the better. There was better communication. We cleaned up perceptions. We cleaned up a lot of those things that were diseased, separate words, in the discombobulating or disorientating or disassumption or unassumption or misassumption, in the perceptions of things. And so cleaning that up really will help whatever other people can do, right? So it's important sometimes, even if we don't want to communicate, that we don't have to do it alone. Remembering that if we need to have a conversation with a boss or a spouse or an ex-spouse even, or somebody like that, it's okay to bring somebody with us, even if they stand on the front porch with the door open, right? We don't necessarily always need to do this alone. And like I said, that sometimes we got to do it. But I was in an experience where I even said, I'm going to bring somebody along so I can make sure I hear you right. It wasn't about them doing wrong. It was about how can I make sure that I'm hearing you right. And so with that because when we go into a conversation wanting to prove somebody's wrong, that is going to turn that conversation up, down, inside
Yes.
out, and in a wrong place that we wanted. And because nobody's wrong or right.
That's
There
right.
is no wrong or right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
You
yes,
just
stealing, killing, things like that is wrong, but really perceptions, who's right and who's wrong.
and that's a really good way with communication when somebody is communicating to you what their wants and needs are, to repeat back to them and say, I says, I hear you saying. And because sometimes you'll get even that wrong if the other person isn't quite, perfect in their articulation of what they want. So it's good to say, hey, this is what I'm hearing, this is what you would like. Another technique too. We're kind of trained when somebody asks us something, we're trained to want to say no real quick. You know, I know, like, say, uh, are you, do you want to, or are you willing to make changes in your personality so we can get along? Whoa, they're
That's
going
a
to want
big
to
one.
say, that's a big one. But
No, because I want to stay me. I don't want to. Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
the way to get to the better communication way is to say to your partner, uh, would you be opposed to changing a few things in your character so we get along? And that gets you, would you be opposed? And they're going to say no, but they're saying no for you to get a yes answer. In other words, it's a way of not being so threatening to them. Just say,
Hmm.
would you be willing to change your personality? No, but would you be opposed to? And of course, then they're going to still say no, because it's what actually salesmen use in communication a lot of time when they're in other words, if you're Patty is so trained in this so well, like if you're trying to get a listing for the house, and instead of saying, would you be willing to list your house with me? She would say something like, would you be opposed? Would you be opposed to me listing your house and getting you more money than you're even asking? No, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Would you be opposed? Would you be opposed having me, one of the best realtors in the area here, working for you? It's just a way of, and they go, no, and somehow it's easier for people to, in a sense, they're saying yes, but they're saying no, but the result is they're giving you a yes answer, that
Hmm.
way, because it feels less threatening to people. So
Exactly.
it's, it's interesting that way.
Well, it
Um,
is. And a lot of times too, people are so quick to respond
yeah,
that they don't stop and think, and they go into reaction instead of interaction. And that's one thing that I've practiced. Now, remembering that communication is about practicing to do better. It's not about snapping the fingers and being changed. You have to practice to do better.
yeah,
And I have learned to practice that many times, that I take a breath if I can before I answer, because that gives me a chance to interpret what they were saying. And then now, how do I feel about what they say? And then what can
good,
I
yeah,
reply with? And that's one thing, that when I'm communicating, I try to get to the 50-yard mark. I know football, I know soccer. I try to get to the middle of the playing field. You know, he's not, that other person's not wrong or right. I'm not wrong or right. But if I can get us to as close to the 50-yard mark, because then we're more on a neutral playing field, that other person is heard and I'm heard, you know? So how can I get to that 50-yard mark to be able to say something? So I really try to get my integrity is to, okay, I hear what you're saying and I agree with a lot of it, but I understand, like a conversation, I agree that I can be there, like us agreeing for the show to be at 4 o'clock, if one of us said, well, let's do it at 3:30, and the other one said, but I like 4:30, well, where's the neutrality? you know
yeah,
4 o'clock, right, is that
yeah,
neutral place. And so it's not wrong that I want it at 3:30 and you're not wrong at 4:30, to give an example. This didn't happen, but but then, we kind of come to that neutrality of let's do it at 4, so that it's not so late for me and it's not so early, or it's not so late. It's later for you and it's not so late for me, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And so, how do we even negotiate this dance? And it's about coming to that 50-yard mark, because neither of us are wrong and neither of us are right.
Yeah. And I liked your idea about taking a moment before you respond, especially if people are trying to communicate through text, like a friend or spouse or something is upset, and so they write you a long text, and as you're reading it, you're feeling like, the worst thing you can do usually was when you're feeling that way is to respond immediately, because you're going to be doing it with hurt emotion and everything, and you're going to say something that's not going to be good. So give it a little time, even if it's just a few minutes, or sometimes a few hours. Sometimes I know it's best to just wait until you wake up in the morning, if it's like later at night, and then you don't respond right away. Of course, now, your partner, if it was that kind of thing, if you don't respond in a reasonable amount of time, they're going to take that as passive aggressive, you know, and like, oh, he's seen the message and everything, and why isn't he getting back to me on that? He's trying to punish me, or he's trying to, like, whatever. So, you'll know with the part, what could be passive aggressive and what's the amount of time that could be normal for you. But the worst thing you can do is just, oh, I just read this. Oh my God, that's so wrong, blah, 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 blah. And then, oh my gosh, that just is crazy. Take a
And that
few
adds so
breaths,
much
right?
grief, of communication about life. And I know for me that going into it, that sometimes, again, I have to go into thinking, okay, I don't have the whole story yet. I trust, surrender, accept, because I don't have all the information yet. And so sometimes you have to wait, and not assume, and negotiate. And the thing about life, though, is we have to meet people where they're at. We have to meet people where they're at. So if somebody is not a good communicator and is and is not a really good friend and is not communicating well, then meet them where they're at. You know, understand that you don't communicate well, so then don't interact with them in a highly motive way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to get together with someone and go out for the night and they don't get back to you, plan B. Always have plan B. Meet them where they're at. Sorry, you didn't get back to me in time. I went out with somebody else. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about you're doing wrong. you're far from doing wrong, but I have to take care of me. And so
Mm-hmm.
meeting people where we're at, because I know that there's a lot of parents out there that we have that they're not very good parents, or they're not very good communicators, and or they're very demeaning when they communicate. And sometimes it's like we just kind of we have to read their text with discernment and put the phone down and then not answer,
Yeah.
right? And just say no. And there's other people who have like past relationships, and I even give them the guidance that, hey, you know, you may have to communicate with them, because let's say a child's with the two of you or something, but change the way that the song comes on so it's a whole new song for you, you know. And then don't answer unless it's dealing with the child. You know, it's like, use boundaries, meet people where they're at, meet people where you need to put them in your relationship.
Yeah.
You know, because there is reasons for doing that, but remember, check in with your intention. Is this to be mean, or is this to be say, this isn't working for me? You know, we got to really check in with our intention, because this is a slippery slope. I had a conversation, and I'm going to call this out, with my husband one time. It was in one of his strong moments of recovery. And, you know, it was the serenity prayer.
Mm-hmm.
God, grant me the serenity to accept things I can change. And I know this serenity prayer, but I'm not saying it right.
I think, and what, the wisdom to know when you
The
can't, you
difference.
know, the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah, that
Yeah,
some things
exactly.
that you can't change. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So people know the serenity prayer. We're not going to stay there, because the point is that there was a moment where I had to say, and the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I had a conversation saying, there's things I cannot change. You're a morning person. You wake up at 4 o'clock. I like to stay awake until 11:30, 12 o'clock. Even if I go to bed at 9:30, I read until 9:30 or 11:30, 12 o'clock. It's a thing I am. It's a thing that you are. We're not going to change that. Now, there are times I can get up at 4 o'clock and get a plane. There are times, like I went to a soccer game on Saturday and I got up at 6 o'clock the next morning and I was in the car going by 7, right? Things I can change in moments, but overall, I'm not going to change it for my whole life, right? I don't have
Mm-hmm.
a job that I need to do that. But how can I negotiate that story and not be wrong, and not be demeaned wrong about it? So we have to accept things that we cannot change in order to negotiate our world. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm hoping that people can get in communication, is remembering that there are things that people are, but we got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And if that means that they're giving 20%, then give them 20%. If they're giving you 80%, respect their 80%, and defer back to saying, you know what, I'm sorry that I can't give that much all the time. I will give you when I'm with you, but otherwise I have to step back and give the other things what I give. You know, I do that a lot with, I've communicated with some good friends of mine, because when I'm with them, you know, but when I'm not, I'm with other people.
Right.
And they feel that pull away, you know, they feel that
Yeah.
energetic pull away. And I've had to say, I don't want to do this, but I have to be where I'm at, because that's who I am, is I have to be where I'm at. And sometimes I'm a little bit squirreled, you know, checking on intuitive reason for an eye twitching, but you know, I really want to be where I'm at. And that's the discernment. That's the communication that people can really get, is that body language. It's that knowing, it's that being. And you know, how can we do that? You know,
Mm-hmm.
by being more engaged instead of reactive,
Mm-hmm.
checking in intentions.
Mm-hmm. You know, a good show we could do too. It's kind of an offshoot of this. Would be um, setting boundaries and new and established relationships. You know, especially if two, like I have two granddaughters that recently moved in with their boyfriends. You know, and I jokingly asked them a few, or you know, told them, I said, well, you guys are gonna have to talk about a lot. You just kind of, you know, because when they're, you know, 20 years old, or 20, one's 22, one's 19, I think, And you know, I have met both of they're my granddaughters, and I've met both of their boyfriends, and they seem like they've chosen well. You know, they might at least, and I know their boyfriends are on their best behavior, but you can just kind of tell a little bit by the way you're perceiving them for the day, you know, that way. But they were kind of surprised, the youngest ones, when I was talking about, well, you guys need to talk about, and rattled off about 5 or 6 things, and they were going, oh yeah, oh gosh, what about that? What about that? You know, because it can stave off so many arguments and so many things if you have set the rules of, you know, who's taking out the trash, you know, who's taking out trash, who's making the bed. Um, you know, if we just have one sink, you know, how do you make room for, you know, both people's toiletries? And if one's in the bathroom and the other's got to get to work, and that they need to, you know those things. There's just all the things that happen when you're cohabitating with another person. And when you talk about those things and whose responsibility is, or the way your actions are going to be, wow, you know, communicate really well, it just keeps it, so many issues you won't have to worry about, you know.
Well, and I can say, being in a marriage for as long as I have, you still need to do that.
Constantly, yeah,
Constantly,
because
because it's
new
like
things show up, yeah.
things show up. I'm off for the summer, you know, so I know that I have to manage things. So that's a communication. I go back to work, you know, or I go back to scenarios, or if my intuitive business gets busy, I have to communicate. Okay, this is a week that I can't do the normal things that's perceived I'm going to do. So things are going to shift up here, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's that story of how can we negotiate who we are, what we're doing, where we're going with this.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, that'd be a good topic to talk about sometime, you know, just like with it, because it's like part of communication, you know, that way.
Communication through change.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow, look at that. It's in 1 minute, we've been on for about an hour. It's crazy.
I know, isn't it?
I'm glad we have some nice people that
I know. Thank
watch
you
it once in a
everyone
while.
for watching.
You know, and
Please
we're just
like, share,
yeah,
you know, subscribe, whatever you can do, because this is a dance that we're doing, and I love
yeah.
the dance of the soul. It's fun to
Me
have a
too.
conversation
It's
with
like
you,
the people that
Regan.
watch. It's just like when and especially when they chime in too, and I get a feeling like we're sitting in the living room and we're all just talking about things, you know, that human beings need to talk about.
The
And you and
dance of the
I,
soul.
we don't have all the answers, but because of the work that we do and this spiritual work that we do, we've been blessed with finding out a lot of information, you know, that's very valuable for people. You know, now we've had over 70,000 people go spend a couple hours in heaven, the afterlife, and all that we've learned from that. For some, you know, some people have really been able to manage their life better. It's almost like heaven, the afterlife, that what the souls in that over there are beginning to have a new level of communication with. It's open. I would say they've opened up a portal in a way of a new way for us to communicate, so that we can, you know, not have to, you know, to answer some of the basic questions about life, why we're here, and what our mission is, and so forth. So
Exactly, and that's
yeah,
the thing about that, and that's actually what my show is going to be on Wednesday about, is our guides, spirit, and angels, you know, and how
yeah,
the veil is thinning up, and we're getting, you know, even if you're not claimed to be intuitive, using quotation marks around that statement,
hmm
that that we are all getting to more knowings, and so when we're with other people, um that there is this dance of perceiving things and synchronicities. You know, it's like you being 10 minutes late, you know, because you took a right instead of, or left instead of a right, and then you're walking in with your ex-wife,
yeah,
and that set the whole intention for the next couple day moments for you, right?
yeah, yeah. And we both, it was so cool because we both realized, you know, because there was probably 100 people at the funeral, and the fact that we were the first ones there, and that, you know, if I'd have pulled in 10 minutes, it was just something about, as I'm pulling in, the car's coming to a stop at the same time, you know, and then, we both realized that, oh, I guess we get to spend some time together. And it was nice. We hadn't caught up because her husband that she's married to now is a little jealous and stuff. So we honor that in a way that we don't talk as much as we can, like when we're at family gatherings and things like that. But it just worked out that, we were able to do it. And it felt good catching up and everything. And, two older people just, in a sense, laughing at ourselves about how our miscommunication or lack of communication caused our lives to go in different things. And it was okay. It turned out, I mean, she's doing okay. I wouldn't be here with you right now, probably. I wouldn't have got into the Newton work and that sort of thing. So,
And you
and that's
wouldn't have met your wonderful woman now that you have,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's another show right there. Is talking about how do you know when something, in other words, something happens to send you to an alternate path in your life. How do you know when it's because of wrong choices that you've made that's caused that to happen, or when the universe is actually um, orchestrating it? You know, and how does that all work? I don't even. It would be interesting to talk about that, but because
Change and the
sometimes,
possible whys.
yeah, all this, so many whys. Because I feel like I'm right now on the show today, right with you, Natasha. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing at this moment. For whether we have 3 people or 100 people or something, that there must be something that you and I have learned that as we're talking here, that's going to resonate with some people, just as we've had others, as we were climbing the ladder in a sense that we listened to or heard or whatever, somebody who has more pieces to the puzzle than we do, even if it's one
Exactly.
piece. So today, I mean, just the few techniques I mentioned, or the things that you mentioned today, if people get just one thing and they go, oh yeah, I could do that, that makes the whole show worth it.
Hmm.
Because that mushrooms into, if that one person has a better relationship, then that relationship is going to flourish better, and then the offshoots of that relationship are going to flourish. It's like the throwing a pebble in the pond,
Hmm.
and um, the butterfly effect, I guess they say. So
Exactly.
we all got to help each other, that way. So if people want to get a hold of me for therapy, I'm at visittheafterlife.com. I do regular hypnotherapy with people dealing with post-traumatic stress, fears, phobias, and bad habits. I don't really do I can, and I'm pretty good at it, helping people to lose weight or stop smoking. But there's some people that do hypnotherapy that's all they do, and they may be a little bit better at it than me. Although I've had some people um, thank me for helping them to lose, 80, 90 pounds, kind of thing. Um,
You
so,
do it the way that Regan does it, and that's why people come
yeah,
to you, Regan, because you're Regan. You're not
right.
anybody else. You are Regan, and so you are amazing the way that you do things. I just love the way that your intention and your kindness and your whole ability of just being
Yeah.
being.
I figure if somebody contacts me, then I just accept it, and I'm supposed to be the one that they talk to. I was at a golf shop and golfing last week down in on the coast of California as I was going down there to be on Deal or No Deal down there.
That's right.
Not,
You're going to tell us about that
oh yeah, not Deal or No Deal. I was on Let's Make a Deal. They got
deal.
all these
Mhm.
deal things down there. It was an interesting thing just to see how they do the show. We showed up at 12:30. Oh, let me back before I forget. When I was golfing on the way down to there, and the man asked what I did to start a conversation, I told him a hypnotherapist, and then he says, "Oh my gosh, 30 years ago I stopped smoking because of hypnosis." He says, "I went to this thing. There was 300 people there. It was a big." He says, "I paid $49. This guy has us close our eyes. He went through this whole thing, and when I was really relaxed, he was talking, and as a group, he says, the next time you feel like having alcohol, your body's going to really, really want a really nice, cool glass of water." And it was over, and all of a sudden, the next day, he feels like having a beer, and all of a sudden he gets some ice water. And he says, man, for about 6 months, I had to go to the bathroom about every 10 minutes, it seemed like, because I was drinking so much water. But he never, I forget if it was for drinking or smoking. I think it was smoking. He says, when you want to have the thing for a cigarette, instead, you're going to want to have a glass of water,
Well,
but
it doesn't
whatever.
matter either one.
We went
Yeah.
to one session, $49, and he gave up smoking, a pack a day,
Oh.
so crazy. So, no, oh, but let's make a deal. It was I'd been on other game shows in the audience before when I was in Hollywood, and they would pay actors to fill in where there wasn't enough public, so the audiences were full. So sometimes we'd get like minimum wage, but we'd be there like all like, I remember Deal or No Deal. I did probably 15 times I was there, and it was fun. It was like having really cool entertainment and getting paid there just to sit there in the audience all day. So I kind of knew a little bit how they worked, but with this one, we showed up at 12:30. They had a big video screen up there that was showing old shows and stuff there and then a guy came in. He talked about how, okay, now we want nobody puts their hands in their pockets. We want because you never know when the camera's on you. So you always want to be moving or being happy, and they really coach you, that way. And so when we did it, I was showed up as everybody wears crazy costumes, you come as a character or something, and Carrie was on there with me, and she looked absolutely great in her costume, which was like a lion tamer with the big hat and the whip and all that stuff, from the circus. And I came as a ventriloquist, so I was dressed kind of like this with Andy Friendly, my dummy that I worked with for 30 years, So they set us right down in front. So I'm thinking, wow, this is perfect. We're going to be right there for sure. We're going to be on the show. The whole show, he never even glanced at us. He was like 25 feet to my right there, and he was always looking, and he never turned all the way around to see us. And we were getting all disappointed. It was just so crazy. So right at the very end, this woman that we had become friends with there, talking in the day, she was dressed in a crazy costume. She got picked. She actually got the big deal of the day, which was worth $22,000, where she would go 2 trips. One was to New Orleans, and the other one was to Morocco. And there were 2 trips and valued at $22,000. Okay, so then they have advertisements, and they come back for one last quick 5-minute thing, where he'll look at some of the audience and says, if you got a shot glass in your somewhere anywhere on you, you can win $500. And a guy pulls out a shot glass, which they told us ahead of time that the hot items was a shot glass and a blue ribbon and one other thing, and so if you happen to bring those things and you were pointed to, and he says, if you have that with you, well, okay. So then his sidekick, they call him, he's got red hair, they call him the ginger sidekick or whatever. He sees Andy now, so someone's getting this is the first time. So he runs over with their microphone, he puts it in my dummy's face, and I try to stand up with him, and he says, no, I'm talking to him, So it was kind of funny. Just sit down, Regan, I'm holding him. So he put the microphone there. He says, if you can tell me the 2 places that the person who won the big thing are going, the 2 where are they going, I'll give you $150 for each one. So could have won $300. So Andy, my dummy, says New Orleans, and I'm thinking in my mind, great, $150. And then I think I influenced Andy to say the wrong thing, because I said Monaco rather than Morocco. And he says, oh, you got it wrong, and then the host, Wayne or something, made a funny joke about a dummy and this stuff, So we got a little bit of time, but it was fun. It was a good experience, just seeing how it all works and everything,
Cool.
And the fact that we didn't win any money, then you're still eligible to come on another time. If you win anything, like even $100 or something, you can't be back on that show for at least 3 years.
Oh, okay.
They have a kind of, so, you learn these little things, like that. So it was interesting, a good experience.
Cool. Well,
Anyhow.
we're way over.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So visit the afterlife. I specialize with post-traumatic stress, fears, phobias. But what I really love to do is the spiritual work with the Newton Institute, where in a deep state of trance, which most people can reach, about 90% of people, within 1 or 2 sessions, they're able to actually expand their awareness to the other side, like having a near-death experience without the crazy death part. And it's done in a safe, easy way. You make out a list of questions you want to have answered about your life, your mission, your goals, why were you born, why are different people in your life. You get to go to your soul group to talk to the higher selves of people that are still alive in your life. As we learned, there's always part of us over there. Anyway, you can learn about it at my website. Visit theafterlife.com. Some great videos on there, and
Well,
it can be done just like Natasha and I. We can either help you in person if you're in in our sphere of where we live, or on Zoom, online, and sessions are just as successful. So,
they
anyway,
are.
Natasha, now I noticed you've redone a lot of your website in
I
the last
have.
months,
I've
haven't
I've
you?
updated my website. I'm very
Man,
excited about
and
it.
you got some great videos on there. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank
I
you.
liked watching one where you channeled Jesus, or I forget what it was, but it was pretty cool.
Well, thank
On
you.
there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So you guys want to see some great videos, and that they're the ones we do. The ones our show on Wednesday, right? Wednesdays at
Mhm.
4. And there's so many talents that she has. See, I'm being your spokesperson here. Even feng shui, people have commented, not just me, because you helped me feng shui my office and Patty her office, but I know other people have commented on this, like just this little change and how they move things around, really changed the energy in their house and their
It
offices
can.
and things,
It really
and it
can.
really brought life to their place where they have.
Mhm.
Um,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It
So
changes the whole intention.
yeah, and then also if you do private sessions, like I think people, the number one thing I think people, at least I think of, that they love to see a medium for is if they're distressed about someone who's on the other side, or about the
Mhm.
loss of somebody, and you're able to connect them with that, which is a beautiful thing. You've helped me a couple of times, which was when, I mean, I always kind of knew mediums were right, but I hadn't had one prove themselves to me. And a couple of times the things you did, and I go, oh, she's the real deal here. You know, it was
Thank you.
really cool.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm so
Yeah. Well,
grateful. You were just so sweet.
so tell them
Yes.
what's going on this week on your show and stuff.
Well, Wednesday at 4 o'clock Pacific time, I'll be talking about angels, guides, and how
Oh,
they
good.
interact with us. Because a lot of us are getting synchronicities, and we just kind of, you know, throw them under the bus, and it's like, no, 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 no. That's part of the whole communication, and knowing things like that. And I may actually channel too. I don't know. It's amazing who comes in at times. I was doing a quick little
Yeah.
session with someone, and all of a sudden my voice changed, and I was talking about something real quick, and they're like going, holy crap, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So
Yeah.
so I'm right there, but I'm a multi-life intuitive, so I've had lots of lifetimes practicing being intuitive. I also know a lot of those past lives stuff, and how to be in our stories, and negotiating. So I have a past life DNA work session that I do, that I so enjoy, bringing a betterness to people with knowing that they can heal the DNA in their lives, and the past lives that we are, and it's just amazing. So check out my website. I've shifted things up. I'm coming into my empowerment, which is a blessing. So
Yeah.
thank you for everyone for being here. Please like, share, and if you know of somebody who can use us, please spread the word, because we are here to help this world be better. And
Yeah. And
and Sarah, Sarah, if you're still here,
oh,
uh, I wrote a story in 6th grade where the main character with names was Regan.
oh wow.
See, there's a synchronicity. So welcome. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Yeah.
Will
Thank
be
you.
here next Monday. And you know what? I think that why does change happen? You know, the
Wow.
reasons why change happens. I think that might be our good conversation next
Oh yeah, I got
Monday.
some good
So
stories on that. Yeah.
yes, so I will put that as a for Monday story. So blessings,
Change is good.
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see you next
Blessings.
week.
And oh, if you know of people who like to listen to podcasts, this is on podcasts on most platforms. So welcome, everyone. Check out my websites,
Yeah.
and YouTube, and my YouTube, Natasha Venter AC, is where everybody can find us. Blessings. Bye now.
See you next week.
Know you're loved.